Good morning. I'm Jordan Slocum, and this is the Doane College Review on 90.5 KUTT. Every Saturday morning from 8 until 8:30, we take a look at what's going on around Doane College athletics, academics, and more. On today's program, we'll talk to Doane women's basketball coach Tracee Fairbanks, Doane head baseball coach Jeremy Jorgensen, and Rachelle Burks, visiting assistant professor of chemistry at Doane College. Believe it or not, with December underway, we're already about a third of the way through the basketball season. For head coach Tracee Fairbanks of the Doane women's basketball team, what has she seen from her team so far?
Well, I've been really happy with what we've been able to accomplish thus far. We have a couple losses that, of course, you'd always like to have back and play that game a do-over, if you will, but there's no do-overs. We have some really solid, strong wins. We're currently 6-1 in non-conference play, so that's really a good place to be. And we've had a tough conference start as far as in the GPAC, but in the 3 games we've played. But it's definitely nothing that all our losses have been really close losses, and so I have no doubt that the players will be ready for our next conference game, which is tomorrow against Hastings.
After those 3 GPAC losses, Midland, Mount Marty, and Concordia, this past weekend you picked up 2 non-conference wins in the Ashford Classic. What did you see in those 2 games?
Well, I just thought we played with a sense of just go out and play and not too much nerves and not too much anxiety. It just go out and nothing to lose, just play Doane basketball just like you practice. And I really felt like it was a lot of team people on the bench contributed, both on and off the court. So I just really liked how we approached those 2 games on the road. And so I hope we can take that same approach back into starting conference back up again.
This is the Doane College Review on 90.5 KUTT, talking to Doane women's basketball coach Tracee Fairbanks. Were either game from the Ashford Classic your team's best performance to this point in the season, or do you think another game?
Actually, I do think overall, as far as a solid performance, both offensively and defensively, would have been our Sunday game against Mount Mercy. We got a lead up to 18 points, and we didn't hardly let that lead escape. In fact, we pushed it then up to 29. And I think that's always solid to get a lead and then to not only maintain that strong lead, but to increase the lead. So I was really impressed by that. The other thing was in both games, we gave up 49 points is all, which is a season low for us. And so that's really impressive in college basketball play, I feel, is to only allow teams back-to-back to score 49 points.
Do you feel like defense is your team's strongest facet right now?
I do, as far as I think that's what helps us be confident on offense. If we can get defensive stops, playing our team defense, and just being aggressive with it, I really think that carries over to the offensive end for us. We do a lot of breakdown drills and work and talk about individual defense, but also our team defense and being there for your team, doing your job, but trusting your teammate will have your back.
This is the Doane College Review on 90.5 KUTT. Again, we're talking to Doane women's basketball coach Tracee Fairbanks. Now, Coach, this interview will be airing on Saturday, so by the time people are hearing the interview, the game with Hastings will have already been played, but that's coming up tomorrow as we record this interview. What do you see when you look at the Broncos?
Well, they're undefeated coming in. They just have solid all the way around. They have an inside presence with their post play. They have a couple guards who can drive it and get it to the rim and are really aggressive. And then they have the perimeter shooting. And so their balance is just really important. They play solid defense. They pressure you. It's a good man-to-man. They have a new coach in Gina Johansson, and she's just really doing a great job with where Hastings left off, making it to the Final Four of the national champion of nationals last year. And so they're pretty much picking up where they left off. And so they're a really solid team, but I really feel we are too. So it should be a great battle of two rival schools.
Then the day this interview will air will be Saturday, and you'll be on the road against Briar Cliff. What do you know about the Chargers?
Well, Briar Cliff plays just a little bit different style than what Hastings does. They're more of a zone, but kind of an all-over-the-place zone. We'll match up with you, so it seems like it's a man, but it's really a zone. And they have more of an up-tempo game, and of course we're going on the road. However, we always seem to play really well against Briar Cliff's style of basketball, but I believe they only have maybe one loss to another team in our conference, Northwestern. So it will be another GPAC battle, but I know it's one our players will be ready for the challenge.
Once again, talking to Doane women's basketball coach Tracee Fairbanks here on the Doane College Review. Last question, Coach. For this week and the next few weeks as you enter the heart of the GPAC schedule, what are the things you want to see on the floor from your team?
Well, I think just doing what we do every day, and that's getting after it, working hard, winning the 50-50 balls, playing solid defense, getting paint touches as far as looking to attack the paint, looking for kickouts to our three-point shooters, but also getting post touches. We just had two girls over the weekend, both seniors, go over the 1,000-point mark, and that's Heather Broman. She's a post player for us, and Shelby Bittinger, who's a guard for us. So if we can make sure we distribute the ball between both our post play and our guard play and share the ball, I think that good things will continue to happen for the Doane women's basketball team.
That was Doane College women's basketball coach Tracee Fairbanks. As mentioned earlier in the interview, the team took on number 3 Hastings on Wednesday, and they came up just short, 78-69, although they did come from behind 21 to get back within 4 late in the fourth quarter. Earlier this week, they were victorious in the Ashford Classic, defeating Ashford 60-49 and defeating Mount Mercy 78-49. Once again, you're listening to the Doane College Review on 90.5 KUTT. I'm Jordan Slocum. In addition to the women's basketball team playing this past weekend and on Wednesday, the men's basketball team also took on Hastings on Wednesday, and they were victorious over the 23rd ranked Broncos, final score of 89-86. The Doane wrestling team was also victorious earlier this week. They took out Graceland University in a duel, 26-12, and the Doane wrestling team is 7-0 so far in duels this season. On the schedule for today, the basketball teams are on the road against Briar Cliff. For the women, they're facing the 4th-ranked Chargers, and for the men, Briar Cliff is 11th ranked. The women's game is set to tip off today at 2 o'clock with the men's game at 4 o'clock. Still to come on today's program, we'll be talking to Rachelle Burks, who's a visiting professor of chemistry at Doane College. But right now, it's time to hear from Doane head baseball coach Jeremy Jorgensen, currently enjoying the off-season. First off, Coach, over the course of the off-season, how have things gone?
I think we had a very good fall and got a chance to get a lot of new guys introduced to the system, and felt the intensity was good throughout the fall. And I think guys are excited to get going for the spring.
Over the course of the fall and the winter, when you have a chance to work with the team on the field, on the diamond, what are some of the things you're trying to do?
Well, we had a pretty good group of freshmen coming in this year, and I think one of our best recruiting classes in the time that I've been at Doane. And so it's really an opportunity to just introduce them to our systems, whether it be pitching, hitting, or defense, get them comfortable with that system, and then also try to help bring them up to game speed. I mean, the jump from high school to college is, the biggest jump is the speed of the game. And so we try to make the fall as, realistic as possible and try to prepare them for what they're going to encounter in the spring.
Talking to Doane College baseball coach Jeremy Jorgensen here on the Doane College Review. Do you feel like those freshmen and other newcomers have adapted well so far?
Yeah, I think one of the strengths of our program is the way that our returners and upperclassmen year after year help bring our young players along, and so it's very important that the seniors and juniors that have been in the program for a couple of years kind of help the younger guys come along and show them the way that we do the drills and what the expectations are, and I think that helps bring those young players along a little faster than maybe other places, and but it also is a good environment for those guys to learn and get up to speed.
Are there any of those veteran guys who have really stood out in terms of taking the leadership for this process?
Yeah, I mean, without being able to name all of them, guys like Bryce Rollins, Tyler McKee, Spencer Pugh, Tanner Meyer, Zach Jensen, are all guys that have been in the program for a couple of years and just do a great job of leading by example. And they hold themselves to a very high standard, and so it makes it easy for the younger guys to look up to them and learn how to go about their business. Baseball is a game that demands a lot of reps and a lot of time, and that group of guys has done a great job of leading the team this fall, and just sets the tone for an exciting spring.
This is the Doane College Review on 99.5 KUTT, again talking to Doane head baseball coach Jeremy Jorgensen. Earlier in the interview, you mentioned how this incoming class is one of the strongest you've had at Doane. What about this group really stands out to you?
Well, I think it's, the overall athleticism and kind of the depth of talent. So, we've, been fortunate to obviously have some good recruiting classes in the past. I just see the upside for this group of guys is kind of sky's the limit. So, with that goes a lot of responsibility and, pressure to live up to that. But, I think if they continue to work hard and just continue to learn and get better and grow in the program, they've got an opportunity to, continue the tradition at Doane.
You've been the Doane head coach for about a decade now. Do you feel like you've just improved as a recruiter as well over time?
Well, obviously, I think it's important for all coaches to continue to learn and develop as well. And so, obviously the success we've had the past few years has helped recruiting, and, I think sense of stability obviously helps as well. But, I think it's, I always have to continue to evolve and change. The dynamics of recruiting classes is always different, and, the competition for players is becoming greater, and so you have to just continue to get better, just like in everything that you do. And I think that's the challenge for any head coach at the college level, is just to continue to find ways to attract talent that but talent that still fits your program.
Again, talking to Doane College baseball coach Jeremy Jorgensen. Last question, Coach. As you head into the winter months and your team is, any work you get to do is more inside, obviously, what are some of the biggest things you want to see from your group of guys over the next 2 or 3 months as we get closer to the start of the season?
Well, just want to see them kind of start to fine-tune some of their skills and just get just kind of get ready to go with groove in their swing. And a big part of the preseason is just that build-up phase to get ready for the season. It's for pitchers, we're trying to build their pitch counts and bring them along so that they're in a position to be ready to go at the beginning of the spring. But that process continues to build throughout the year so that we're peaking at the end. That's kind of the goal. So, The next couple months when we're inside, it's just really kind of grooving your mechanics and, kind of working on just getting ready to go do battle.
That was Doane College baseball coach Jeremy Jorgensen here on the Doane College Review. And baseball season begins sooner than you might think, with the regular season kicking off in mid-February. Welcome back to the Doane College Review on 99.5 KUTT. I'm Jordan Slocum, and every Saturday morning from 8 until 8:30, we take a look at the academics, athletics, and more around Doane College. We wrap up today's program with an interview with Dr. Rachelle Burks. First off, what do you do in your role with the Doane College Chemistry Department?
So I'm a visiting assistant professor. Currently this term I am teaching 2 sections of general chemistry the first semester, and also an upper division class called analytical chemistry. So I do a lot of teaching, and I'm also a volunteer assistant basketball coach for the women's team, which is a lot of fun.
So how did you get affiliated with Doane initially?
So it goes way back. So back when I was a graduate student at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln and Nebraska Wesleyan, I needed to do a research project for my master's work at Nebraska Wesleyan in forensic science. And I knew that Dr. Holmes was working on a project in that general area. So I started working with her while I was a student and got some great work there. And then I went on to finish my graduate degree and worked elsewhere, and then came back as what's called a postdoctoral research associate in her laboratory. And so I was there for a couple of years, and then the teaching opportunity came open, and then I moved into that role.
Talking to Dr. Rachelle Burks here on the Doane College Review on 99.5 KUTT. When you look at Doane's chemistry department, what are some of the things that really stand out to you about the program?
So it's really small, which is a benefit for students to get a lot of one-on-one attention. So, in really big schools, you can have classes with hundreds of people. At Doane, you're going to have, 20, maybe 30 fellow classmates. In upper division classes, it's going to be, even smaller. The class I'm teaching this term is 11 students. And so you get a lot of good one-on-one attention. Group work is easier to do, and research opportunities are really abound. So Doane students that are in chemistry and in all of the sciences have a lot of opportunities to get involved with research and work directly with professors on their projects. And they can start doing that their first year, which really sets Doane apart from, bigger schools. And also because we have research funding and research opportunities, the students that come through the chemistry program can have 3 to 4 years of research experience, which just makes them really competitive applicants, not only for technical lab jobs directly into the workforce, but also into graduate and professional schools, so going on to get masters, PhDs, MDs. It just really gives them a leg up and a lot more kind of practical lab experience, having this small size.
And I think that'd be so important in a field like chemistry and any of the sciences, especially where to learn, it's not just about reading a few things in a book. It's about actually setting up the experiments and actually doing it.
Absolutely. You've got to, the proof is in the pudding. You've got to get in there and tinker. And part of that is, you really want to see how things work. And some of the best learning that we do is we try an experiment, and it doesn't go the way we'd expect. And we've got to figure out, and that could be a positive, it could be a negative, but we get to see it, and we get to, act like detectives and figure out what is going on here and really get our hands dirty with science. And that's where the best learning comes from. And it also gives our students a competitive edge because they can actually speak to personal experience of being in the lab, solving problems, which any employer in any field is going to want to see because things just don't work, right, in any field. And sometimes things work great. And how can you make it better? How can you improve it? How are you in the face of challenges in the workplace? And so our students with getting that kind of hands-on experience, I think really have a leg up.
I'm kind of reminded of a quote I saw online, something to the effect of, with science, there's not really those moments where you do an experiment and it's, eureka, we did it. It's more of the, That's not supposed to be how that's supposed to. That's strange.
Exactly.
Why is this doing this?
Yes, exactly. I mean, I think probably the best example of that would be Albert Einstein and his what's called the photoelectric effect. So that's the one he won the Nobel Prize for, and that was him looking at data and going, I don't understand how this is working. Albert Einstein is saying, I don't understand what this means. I'm going to need to figure this out. And then, coming up with experiments and hitting his head against the wall, probably literally and figuratively, and really trying to get in there and figure out what is going on here, from the smallest things to the biggest, issues, from the foundation of the universe to why is this just not soluble in water? Really basic stuff to super, super complex issues. But you've got to get in the lab. And that's, I think, the students here can, if they choose to grab those opportunities with both hands, they can get so many valuable years of experience that usually at a lot of schools that are just bigger and they just don't have, you just can't have, there's just issues with size and limitations of having so many people in a facility. But here you just have more opportunities to really get in there and get your hands dirty. And I think it's, as you say, that's how you see how science is really done. And it's always, we report on big findings, right? You report on the big press conferences and the whatever, but those are often the result of hundreds, if not thousands, of small moments of a student or a postdoc in a lab just going, I don't understand what's going on here. And that's really, I think, also students get more comfortable not knowing, and they realize that, a lot of science is just chasing an answer. And when you get an answer, it usually reveals an even bigger question. And so you're always chasing that answer. And that's kind of, I like it. I think that's the fun part. But I'm a nerd, so I would like it.
This is the Doane College Review on 99.5 KUTT, talking to Dr. Rachel Burks, Assistant Professor of Chemistry at Doane. And, like I said, the first step of acquiring knowledge is often just admitting that you don't know, the answer, and you have a question. And like you said, it always, especially with any of the sciences, you answer one question and 5 other questions just appear from that. Yeah, and I think that never changes. I mean, there are really famous chemists. 2 of the big ones would be Dr. Whitesides and Dr. Bertozzi, and they have companies. They're full professors. They're on they've reached kind of the pinnacle of their career. They've all the awards, but it still comes down, because I've heard both of them speak. It still comes down to every day they're in the lab, or their students are, and they come to them with questions of, I don't know, but I'm going to find out. And I think that's that next part that's key. Is always, I don't know, but I'm going to find out. It's the I'm going to find out, that tenacity and that kind of grit that keeps you going. And that is in the sciences, is because a lot of the times it's not the discovery that spurns you on, because then you'd feel like you were done. It's the fact that you don't know, but you desperately want to find out, and that's what keeps you coming back. And so, we try to, that sense of wonder, too, and there is that reward of when you've gotten a bit of a nugget of an answer, even if it's a small one, you just realize that, okay, I got to keep going, because I've got to, you've got to find out the next clue and the next clue and the next clue, and you put it all together, and you've got this great story, and you've got what looks, a real answer there. And then you can share it with your colleagues, and then you start the discussion, and you really get into it. And so it's a very collaborative process. That would be the other thing that students can learn here, is that there's no such thing as, the mad scientist in an underground bunker working alone. There's a bunch of mad scientists in an above-ground laboratory working together. And so it's a team effort. And even though we all kind of contribute to the team, science now has been for decades, since, big experiments, definitely, the famous ones, the Human Genome Project, which involved hundreds of thousands of scientists the world over, is that it is a cooperative endeavor, and it is a community. And Doane students see that when they get here. This is the Doane College Review on 99.5 KUTT, again talking to Dr. Rachel Burks, Assistant Professor of Chemistry at Doane. Now, you have a few YouTube videos that you've been involved with that kind of combine chemistry with various aspects of pop culture. How did you get started coming up with that?
So, I've been blogging at various websites for a long time, and so I'm a huge nerd in all the areas, and so I'm a huge Star Wars fan, Star Trek fan. I love George R. R. Martin's Ice and Fire series, and so whenever I read stuff, because I am a scientist, I go, this isn't a mystery. There's actually a scientific reason for this. And so I started, years ago, started writing. And I did a post on The Walking Dead, which I read the comic books and the show. And so I did one. They had a whole episode about, trying to dodge zombies through basically using a very messy zombie camouflage. And I knew, based on my chemical background, that you could do this a lot easier if you just use a little bit of chemistry. And so I wrote a blog post, which became a talk, and then that caught the attention of American Chemical Society, and we did a video on chemistry for the zombie apocalypse, which was just outrageously popular. And I think it's that's the connection with pop culture, things like The Walking Dead or Star Wars or video games like Fallout. Is these have huge fan bases, and fans, they love this thing, right? And they want to know everything about it. And that includes the science. And so if we can tap into that, then we can talk about these things that we love and the science behind them and figure out, okay, could this really happen? Could it not really happen? Because that's the cool thing, right, about science and fantasy and sci-fi, is that a lot of the things that we've, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 10 years ago, 50 years ago in sci-fi literature and TV, it's like, no, we have that now. Like 3D printers. No, we have that now. That's real. And so it's kind of fun to be able to talk about, how real could this really, how real could this really be? And so that's what we do in the video series. And so we just did one for Fallout, the video game, which the version 4 was just released. And we're doing one for Star Wars. I'm going to film it this week because the new Force Awakens is coming out in 19 days. And so it's just a lot of fun. It's just another way to talk about science, but to reach more people, I hope.
And it's a great way to get students involved, too, and get more interested, because I think some people might be intimidated by a subject like chemistry and might think, oh, that's some boring school thing. I don't want to have to worry about that. But it's far more interesting than maybe a lot of people would give it credit for on their first thought.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think I had a great conversation with some Gen Chem students where, we were talking about the idea of, light being a particle in a wave and some formulas behind it. And then we got into Star Wars and force choking and the equations for force. And then you just see that more people were getting engaged in the conversation and hypothesizing, well, but what about this? What about this? Could it really happen here? And the Death Star, how much lasing power would you need? And you have all these, it really sparks people's interest, because I think, like you say, sometimes the framing matters. And if the pop culture frame will be more inclusive and get more people asking what are really hard questions, really complicated questions, and maybe the premise is, quote, silly, but the questions are excellent. And that's what you want, is as a scientist and as an educator, you're always looking for the questions. And if the questions are good, and if they're thoughtful and they're really eager to know an answer, I don't care if it's Star Wars or South Park or, I've done a panel on the science of Archer, the cartoon. If it gets people there and asking good questions, then as a scientist and as an educator, that's all I can hope for.
That was Dr. Rachel Burks, visiting assistant professor of chemistry at Doane College. And that'll wrap up today's edition of the Doane College Review. Remember, the Doane College Review is on the air here on 90.5 KUTT every Saturday morning from 8 until 8:30. And we'll continue to talk to those involved with Doane College athletics, academics, arts, and more. I'm Jordan Slocum. Until next time, farewell.